Welcome to the most exciting course of your life. We're going to be using a lot of Illustrator in this. What is Illustrator? We'll get to that. Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphics program. What does that mean? We'll talk about that in a second. But first thing, you're going to have to install it. And you're going to have to make sure you have at least the version I'm using so that we don't run into any errors. So if we go over here to Help, once you open up Illustrator, you hit Illustrator Help. You can see your version number. Maybe not Help. Let's try that again. If we go to Help and we go to About Illustrator, we'll notice that I'm on version 27.1.1. Now if you go down here and just type in Adobe and you click on Creative Cloud right here, okay, what you should get is something like this, Creative Cloud Desktop. It's going to have all your apps installed. If you go in here, we've got Adobe Illustrator. I can click on it and it says there's an update available. Let's just go hit this button right here and go learn more, and then you'll see version 27.2. You may not have it installed at all, in which case you'll need to install it. If it's past version 27.2, you're probably fine. Honestly, the Illustrator version you use isn't going to matter too much because we're not going to use any of these complex features. We're just going to learn the basics and then maybe some other cool stuff in this. But let's get going. I mentioned vectors before. Pat yourself on the back if you know what vectors are. But there's two kinds of image formats out there. You're used to using things like PNGs and JPEGs. These are called bitmapped graphics. That just means that there's pixels involved. I'll prove it. See, this is a beautiful face right here. It's my face, in fact. I'm going to zoom in on it, and I'm going to keep going until it pixelates. Now it's a pretty high-res image, but do you see these? These are called pixels. They're blurry, they're ugly, they're bad. And vectors do not have this problem. Vectors are a mathematical formula, and you could zoom in 1,000,000 times and it still would never pixelate. So that is the vector versus the bitmapped or raster. These are some keywords you might see on a quiz. So bitmapped, that means pixels. That means lots of pixels bitmapped together. Those are in formats like JPEG and PNG and other web formats that you're used to using. And they represent actual real pictures. Now, vector graphics, this is also a picture of me, except for it's my spirit animal. But if I zoom in here, notice I can zoom in all I want and I will not get pixels, except for on this, because this is a texture that I added, so joke's on me. But anything else I zoom in on will never get pixelated. So this line will always be a straight line. I could click on it 1,000,000 times and it would never change because it's mathematical, it's a vector. So that is what Illustrator does and what Illustrator does well, vector graphics. So keep in mind that's going to be on a test somewhere. That being said, we need to kind of organize and regroup and show you where you're at in Illustrator. So what we're going to do is start with a new, fresh canvas. So I'm going to go File, New. There are lots of formats to pick from, and we will go over a little bit some color theory and web graphics versus print graphics. For right now, it doesn't really matter what you pick. It's vector, so you can scale it up all you want. You could scale it 1,000,000 times. So pick anything you want, doesn't matter. We'll start with print right here. I'm gonna hit create, and just keep in mind, we'll go over CMYK color versus RGB, but I'll say this a lot of times until you kind of remember it. CMYK is for print. That means you're printing on something like paper, for instance. RGB is for web or video games or anything with a monitor, television, a screen really. So hit create. We'll get a new canvas, but still I have a bunch of windows disorganized all over the place. So I want you on the same page as me. So what we're going to do is go Window, Workspace. We'll go to Essentials Classic, which is the old school because I'm old school. We're going to go ahead and reset Essentials Classic. Boom, there you go. Now, there's a lot here, a lot to learn. You don't have to learn it all. We're going to do a couple things in this video. I want you to practice along with me because this is what you're going to turn in as your very first assignment. So, a couple things to note. We're really working with shapes, colors, not so much texture and no pixels. So what does that mean? Well, let's just get to creating, and we'll just start with a simple shape. Like if I hold this down and there's a little arrow here, just like Photoshop, we have extra tools. So I'm gonna go to the shape one, I'm gonna click on rectangle, and I'm just gonna draw out a rectangle. Super boring, I know, but let's modify it. Okay, first thing is automatically there's usually a stroke and a fill color. So there's a fill, that's the inside of the shape. Stroke is the outside outline really, and we can modify that, and we do quite a bit, and we do it right here. We can change the middle color or the fill, and then we can change the stroke color or this outside line. I'm going to zoom in. I'm using the same hotkeys as Photoshop, so spacebar to move around, and I'll go Control plus spacebar to zoom in, Control Alt spacebar to zoom out. That's kind of how we navigate. So spacebar, Control spacebar and click, or Control Alt spacebar, and of course you can also use other hotkeys like Alt and middle mouse button. Okay, you're going to want to practice all that. Practice moving around, practice changing the fill and stroke color. There's other things you can do like increase the stroke size. Pretty cool. You can change this to have uniform stroke or not uniform. And really, this is pretty fun stuff, okay? It's different than Photoshop. You need to throw out everything you knew about Photoshop when you're learning Illustrator other than the pen tool. I told you the pen tool is super powerful because it's awesome. And we will be using it quite a bit in Illustrator. And then of course, have fun with this. You can even do like cool textures and stuff. Just like Photoshop, you can append. So you can go in here, click something else, mess around, find some cool stuff, hit buttons, make things happen. Of course, if this is deselected, you got to go back and select this, and then you can change it quite a bit. Okay, all this is kind of goofy. These look like 90s cheesy graphics. That's okay for right now. We're just having fun and learning the tools. So we've reset our workspace, window, workspace, essentials classic, and reset. And then we're just showing a couple little tools, like we use this box tool right here, the rectangle tool. Now this is key. First I'm going to change this. I'm going to go ahead and use the select tool. Hotkey is V. You're going to memorize that one. So V to select this. You can move it around. Again, it's not like Photoshop. I can't use Control T. In fact, Control T just gets me the character panel. So in order to like rotate this or scale this, I have to use another hotkey, and I expect you to remember this. It's E. Hit E, and then you've got kind of that free transform tool that we had in Photoshop. You can hold Shift and you can rotate it. You can also scale. You can hold Shift to scale proportionally, but you're gonna need to know about this tool right here, and hotkey E, all right? And then V for just your normal select tool. Now it gets kind of crazy. Selections in Illustrator can become very complex and dense very quickly. So I'm gonna show you something real quick. Let me go ahead and get rid of this goofy dots. I'll just put a line there. I wanna make this look a little bit simpler. Now, these are all components in Illustrator. They're objects. We can select components on objects. For instance, we could select a single point on this, but we can't use the normal select tool. We have this called the direct select tool for that. You're gonna need to know about both these tools and how they work. So I'm slowing down my speech. I really want you to get this. So this direct select tool here will let me select individual points. So if I click here, click again, then I can just modify a single point on here. It's kind of cool, right? You can make different complex shapes with this. Like this is Nike, all right? And this is a box, and this is a cool shape like a sailboat. I don't know. I'm gonna go back to Nike though. Cool. So this is direct select, and this is select. Select will only select the full-on object, and direct select will let me select individual points and modify them. So we can make very complex shapes very quickly. Obviously, I made the coolest shape of all time when I made this Nike symbol. I'm gonna go ahead and scale that down a little bit. And then I'm just going to mess around for a second. So there's lots of features here. We could never go over them all in a short video, but I'm gonna go object, and I'm gonna go repeat, and I'll go radial. Boom! Now it's like a bunch of cartoon feet running around in circle real quick. But again, I have a more complex shape here. Super cool, or not, whatever. You can also change how many are on this. If I just click this button right here, I can go and have less or more. All right, so now I've created something kind of cool. Could be used as a logo. I'm gonna go ahead and make this a logo. What does it need? Words. So instead of Nike, this will be Nikkei. All right, now, those of you who have watched Back to the Future 3 know what I'm talking about.
Take a gander at them moccasins. What kind of skins is them? What's that writing mean? Nikkei, what is it?
It's the cowboys who don't know what Nike is. So I'm gonna go ahead and change the size of this, and I'm going to change the font because this font is not cool. Again, when I'm in a tool, I have to go back to my selection tool. I double click in here, and Myriad Plural is not doing it for me, but this looks like a cool font, Guardians Regular. That may be coming up in a future lesson, or not, I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm hitting E to scale it, again, holding Shift to proportionally scale, and I wanna just kind of fit it in here. Now, I didn't plan on doing this. This is just me being spontaneous.
Where shall we go?
Truman, where are we going?
Well, we know.
me, I'm being spontaneous. All right, but now I've created something cool. I've got that down there. I don't know what that is. Don't worry, I'm gonna delete that. So here I've created like kind of like a logo. With the direct selection tool, regular selection tool again. Created this logo in no time at all, just messing around, goofing off. You could change the colors or whatever. We could change the color of this font, you know, something horrible like that. Just kidding. We could try matching these colors here. We're not getting to color theory right now. I just wanted to show you kind of how Illustrator works. It's a lot different than Photoshop, yet there's a lot of similarities too. So you need to remember how to use this normal select tool, this direct select tool, and then of course this free transform tool right here. Okay, those are the main things I wanted to show you here, but we wouldn't want to leave this video without getting a little bit crazy. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select this text. I'm going to duplicate it, Alt drag. You're going to need to remember Alt drag, so the more you try that, the more easier it will be to remember it for the test. But I'm going to select this text down here, go to Object and Expand, and what it does is it actually creates points on here. So it's no longer text. I can no longer change the font or whatever on it, but I can move the points around with this direct selection tool. So let's say I wanted this part of the E to really extend, you know, way off into the distance, okay? Or this part of the A to go, and I'm using Shift, by the way, and Shift again. I could have it extend all the way through, all right? Really cool stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that looks good. In fact, it looks terrible. But let's make it look even worse, shall we? We'll select all this with the select tool, and we'll go to Effect, Extrude and Bevel. And there we have 3D text just like that. And we'll go find a material, and we'll throw something weird on it just because we can. Yeah, super cool. Then we'll go back over to Object, and we will revolve. Look at that. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's Nikkei, greatest company on earth. There it is, people. All right, so if you see this in the mall when you're hanging out with your peeps, just know. Okay, again, I want you to share this. I'm going to go over it again just so you don't forget. You have to save it, so File, Save As. Save it to the cloud, name it like Nikkei, something like that. Hit Save, go to Share, Share for Review. This is in beta, so if something breaks, you can blame Adobe. Don't blame me. It's not my fault. Anyone with a link, create link. Might take a second. It's in beta, so copy this link, head over to Moodle, and on this one, you're going to how to turn stuff in. Right here, turning in assignments, okay? Go ahead and put it in here, post that link, and I will see you in the next one.